because Sierra Leone gained the independence in 1961. So they fought for that. And then during that time, when they were fighting, during that political discussions, and they have this disputes, and then you have breakaway groups, a group of people who formed the SLPP that became one of the major political parties. So they were fighting about independence, not independence, or all these political issues. So remember now, you said 1961. So this gradually started building up.
Of course, looking at the situation of Sierra Leone, like in many other parts of Africa, I think that is a good lesson that we can learn from Rwanda, of course, without going so much in detail, because the people need to heal. The situation that happened is very traumatizing. You talk about of course, there are many other people that are living right there in Sierra Leone who need to be listened to. The idea of talking, that is already something good. Let's talk about what happened to us. Let's talk about our feeling. How do we feel about what have happened? I don't think there is any magic bullet anywhere. The problem that we have within it part of the solution.
I remember you mentioned, because earlier on, you mentioned about reconciliation, what to do. I was elaborating on your response because you influenced me. So in a nutshell, the reconciliation, I would say, I mentioned earlier, mindset is a key aspect of all the problems that we go through in life. Nothing happens outside us without internal thoughts. For every action, there lies the thoughts behind it. My name is Buckarie Dumbuya, also known as Dumbuya. I always say I was designed, made, and nurtured in Sierra Leone, West Africa, Freetown, developed in the United Kingdom. I've got two social identity, Sierra Leonean and British citizen. But my personal brand I created for myself, I'm a global citizen. So I help businesses to discover their inner greatness, to create value, and then realize growth for themselves and make a difference in society. And I help people, young people, business professionals, where if you're human beings, you are part of my target audience. I help you to discover inner success, because once you are successful from within, then the effect of that will be a success for the world. So mindset is something that I'm driven to. Thank you. And I hope today you would learn more about me. And also my background revolves around design innovation management, entrepreneurship, business psychology, design thinking, fashion. I do dance as well. So in a nutshell, to describe me, if you want to describe me and the image I would like people to understand, when you hear the word Buck or the name Buck or Buckarie Dumbuya, remember that it is a child of God. It's an inspiration. It's the bridge of inspiration and transformation. So wherever you are, I will be the inspiration to guide you. And then your action will be the transformation. And that's my motivation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, dear Dumbuya. You were there the other day where we talked slightly about the Sierra Leonean Civil War. And I said that it is an important conversation that we need to treat in and of itself, not just as attachment to another argument. And of course, with you, we are doing 3 episodes. The one we did before is done. This one is another one. Then we are going to come back again to talk about business and what you are doing within that area. So both of us, we are from West Africa. I am from Nigeria and you are from Sierra Leone. So what happened to the people of Sierra Leone also happened to us in that it affects us. We are one people. Whether you are in Liberia, you are in Sierra Leone, or you are in Ghana or in Ivory Coast, we are from West Africa. Of course, not only that, I'm not saying that other parts of Africa are not important for us, but we are close neighbor in this sense. I still remember what was happening during the Civil War. Even though I'm not really there in Sierra Leone, I can feel it. I also have a lot of friends that are coming from Sierra Leone because, like Sierra Leone, other wars have taken place in Africa that we sometimes do not understand perfectly. A good example will also be the one that have happened in Nigeria. I think we might have time to touch that as we enlarge and compare and contrast some of the situation. Another situation that looks similar to that of Sierra Leone, because I will come to that because there are some particular cases for me in it. I remember in 2015, I did a documentary where I make mention of, I refer to Sierra Leone and the Nigeria Civil War, and of course, the Rwanda genocide. There is a fine line that I'm asking fellow Africans to reflect on when we are looking at this war. Of course, these are not the only war. There are many others in Africa. We cannot just talk about all of them at the same time. So I repeat again, today's conversation is going to look at some of the causes of this war in Sierra Leone, the effects of the war, and maybe the war have ended many years ago now. Are there some consequences for it? So start by helping me to understand when people talk of the Sierra Leonean Civil War, what do you want them to understand?
To begin with, thank you for allowing me to be on your platform to share my experience and to talk about critical issues that affect not only Sierra Leoneans, but also humanity and the global marketplace as well, and people around the world. Because, for example, I remember when I was in Sierra Leone, when my brother was in Holland, and and the news on TV, CNN, BBC, Sky News, wherever you are at that time, and if you have family members there, you would think that, oh, they're no more, because thousands of people lost their lives. My brother thought we were all dead because mobile phone was not common there at that time. And this was between 1998 and 1999. And because the Civil War crisis happened in 1991 between Liberia border and Sierra Leone. So, not long ago, my brother was worried. So, it's fine. So, they were alive. Because back in the day, to communicate to people overseas, we have to go to a place called Sierra Leone, telecommunications center, where we would pick up the phone and call will queue. So, and obviously, communication lost. So people lost their lives, and we were nowhere to be seen. So, and then my brother thought we all died. Until after we had the opportunity when the rebels were driven out of the capital city where I was born. That's when we had the opportunity to call my brother. I took flight. So on that note, and were people were thinking the fact that the war happened as a result of um, the at that time the military the soldiers military force took power, and it was just a fraction of the military forces and connive with the late rebel leader called Fode Sanko. So people thought that it was just to do with the Fode Sanko and the government. And then the other concept about the war is that it resonates with the Hollywood film called Blood Diamond. Is to do with diamonds, resources. So the war people have different misconceptions or conceptions about it. So what I would like people to understand that what they've listened or what they've read from the media, they need to know that the truth is within, and the war is complex. It's not everything that they read, or they see on TV or news. There are many things that I would have loved to share, but I won't share deeply because I saw when I came here, because the civil war crisis ended 2002, a couple of years just after I've left. But at that time, they were just going away from the city. They've left the city where they made destructions, the old area in Sierra Leone. So they attacked the capital city twice, 98 and 99. So in a nutshell, the civil war crisis was deeper than the Blood Diamond. In fact, I was living with close in a shared accommodation. This was my early days in the UK. This was around in the early 2000s. And there was this lady, she passed away. May her soul rest. She said, Buck, he said, have you seen the Blood Diamond? I said, I don't want to see the Blood Diamond, the movie called Blood Diamond. She said, why? I said, because why watch something that a horrific movie that I've experienced it, and then perhaps what's in there is not even, I don't even want to say. That's what I said. I don't want to say because it will bring that traumatic memory, that nightmare. I used to experience that. So, and then 4 years down the line, I watched it. I was curious to watch it. When I watched Blood Diamond, and I said to her, though I felt emotionally affected me, it brought back bad memories, those nightmares, the things that I've seen, those events, and I was experiencing PTSD as and post traumatic disorder. So it affected me, and at that time I didn't know about the effects of that until when I studied psychology. That's when I was able to deal with stress myself, because there were that I would experience by a sudden sound, and I'll feel scared like this. I'll tremble because I was still experiencing that because when we were in Sierra Leone, we gunshots every few minutes or sometimes a day, and then the following day, boom, boom, boom. So and at that time, now I probably forgot. At my early days in the UK, I could tell you the sound of certain guns because we were living with the rebels. I can tell you AK-47, that's M12 or something, just M50. I can't remember again. So I could recognize that sound. That's the mental destruction of it. So we could recognize the sound, and then the rebels, they communicate, and they know how to communicate in sounds with guns. So anyway, so when I watched Blood Diamond, and do I had the emotion? I said, but that's the tip of the iceberg. So in other words, it's for you to understand, and the audience, about the questions you ask, what people need to understand. The Blood Diamond they saw is the tip of the iceberg of the war. It's deeper than that. It provides and perhaps highlight, so to speak, for people to understand about the nature of the war. And the course of it, some will say, is to do with the diamond, the resources, but it's deeper than that. It's not only that. For me, various from my own observation, it's not only one factor. There's several causes, and that would, again, I would refer it to, again, due to governments, because this issue here is to do with government and leadership. So it's to do with government and leadership, because regardless, and I'll make a reference to an old African saying. I said, if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. What that means is that whether the war is to do with the natural, yes, we've got natural resources, and I experience some conversation with the rebels when we're sitting with them because they were waiting for external, let me say, shipment. And this is real life story I'm telling. Because when they were waiting, they were weapons. So I heard them talking about that. So the point I'm trying to say is that whether it's to do with external forces, but if you don't open the door for enemies or someone who would influence you negatively to enter your home, they will not disorganize your house. The reason why Sierra Leone is in shambles politically, economically, socially, is due to the fact that the people who were supposed to lead the nation, manage the nation, and govern the country, they open the doors to corruption. And that led to the destruction of the nation. And employment rate is high. As we go along, I'll speak more about that.
Now, I think the Africans, particularly those that are away from home, own it as an obligation to help those who are at home, who are on the fire, to have a sense of reference in this conflict. Now I explain. This is not because those at home are not intelligent enough to understand it. It is because sometimes it is very complex. So a couple of years ago, I was interviewing the Nigerian ambassador to Italy because he came to visit the Nigerian community in the city that I'm living in, which is Verona. Then in the course of the interview, I was asking him a question to the effect of, why is it that in Nigeria, we are not paying attention to the real problem that we have? Because honestly, in Nigeria, we are not making an effort to solve the real problem. Instead, we are solving problems that are created to distract us. Meanwhile, the real problems are still there. I will explain. Problem like infrastructure, problem like light. Nigeria, as we currently speak, is in darkness. As of the time we returned to democracy in 1999, the administration of Obasanjo have been making effort to resolve the problem of light in Nigeria. Then came a series of administrations that have created their own problem and make an effort to resolve the problem. For example, the issue of insecurity in the country. It was purely their created problem. That was not the situation as of 1999. Anyway, I don't want to steal the show by explaining the Nigeria situation, but I just wanted to say that then I asked this ambassador, why are we fighting the shadow instead of fighting the real class? Because people are not thinking. I think that a lot of people are not thinking. Then he said something to the effect of, where you cannot think if you are running. For you to reflect, you need to sit down so that your mind can cool down. He said in Nigeria, and I think it is like this in many other countries, like in Sierra Leone, for example, we are on a survival mode. Running. But when you are doing like this, you do not give your mind the ability to reflect on the situation. Now, why am I saying this? I am saying this to mean that particularly those that are away from the situation, they are seeing it from the outside. They have the chance to be able to make a better reflection. So I'm saying that to mean that you are in a better position to help the people understand what is going on, what have gone on, and what can possibly go on in the future. Now, you mentioned the fact that the diamond was not the main issue or was not the only issue, and I think that is important to note. What are some of other issues that could be important to help us better explore this conflict? Because at the end of the day, we will end this conversation by asking what are the possible solutions. But before we can get there, we need to know what has happened. What are the deep understanding we need to have so that we can find a solution? Because if I wrong you, I don't tell you, sorry. With me, I did not realize that I have wronged you, or I do not accept that I have wronged you. There is no amount of reconciliation that we can do because we are on the surface. But if I can make the minimum effort to realize that I have wronged you or accept that I have wronged you, I say, oh, Please, sorry I have offended you. We are human beings. Help me understand what are these deep things we need to understand about the causes of the conflict.
In a minute to respond to that. However, the topic we're discussing, and as I mentioned earlier, is complex. And you mentioned in your conversation, your response, and in reference to prior to you asking the questions, or perhaps you asked the question and then you shared and made reference to Nigeria. So as I said earlier, though we're here to discuss about Sierra Leone, but remember, Sierra Leone is part of the human generation, as part of the global nations, say United Nations. So for us to thrive in society, and then for us to understand the issues that we're going through or the pains we're dealing with, or to find a solution, sometimes we need to look outside ourselves to see or to study in the environment, then to understand and see how we could work and then make a change. So to answer your question, how or the issues that make the cause and the issue, I would answer in a precise form, and then I'll elaborate for people to understand. Because as I said, I speak, talk, and coach and mentor to educate, to encourage people, and to open the doors for people to learn. I don't want to be sound as a dictator. I don't dictate to people. I share my experience based on my opinion. So to answer your questions, and one thing, as I always say, mindsets. In fact, my definition of mindset is past experience, education, and knowledge. We cannot grow within our mindsets, but outside our mindset. What that means is that when you look at the word mindsets, it's the beliefs, the experience that we have, the knowledge we've been educated with. We update our phones, our looks, but we don't update our knowledge. So how, as a Sierra Leoneans, or as Nigerians, or Africans, or as human beings, how can we thrive? For us to realize the human potential is to look inside ourselves. We cannot change the weather condition, nor can we change the status quo in the country that we live in. For our minds, the government, the word government, government officials to govern society. But who are those people governing society? Whether you're a politician, whether you're not, you are people, humanity, people, the mindset. Those people have personalities, and those personalities, where did you acquire your personality from? You were not born with personality, but society gave it to you, and then you accept it as part of your identity. My philosophy of life is that we cannot become wealthy outside ourselves, and success is not realized outside, but within. So to make a change, and the cause of our problems, or the problems in Sierra Leone, in Africa, in Nigeria, what you said, is to do with mindset, lack of your mindset, lack of growth leadership approach. The word growth mindsets, growth, I say growth leadership. Growth means increment, increase. So if you, for example, I've achieved several awards, education, qualifications, knowledge in the past. So that's growth. Prior to me accomplish those, I did not have those knowledge. Remember the first episode we did, I mentioned about the fact that I was groomed in a home where we had library at home. My father, Dumbuya, valued education. I learned the norms and values. That's the first stage of socialization. You've got the three major stages of socializations. One, primary socialization, from 0 to 5. We learn the norms and values of the people around us, our family. So, and then the secondary stage, when we start going to school, and then we learn this culture. These are mindsets. Someone is teaching us their mindset, their opinion, the cultures, right? And then tertiary, university, workplace, we learned. And then we became adults. Now we have to make a choice whether to embrace our mindset, old mindset, tradition, or to embrace a new ways. That's the wisdom. I made mention about and previously about the fact that the Bible says that by any means possible we must seek wisdom, and the beginning of wisdom is understanding. And we also discussed about the misconception about the fact that some people, what we've learned is that education is power, but without using the education, and even you accept that as you. So again, it goes back to what I wrote an article to do with mindsets. Our mindset is past experience, and for us to change, and the course of war, the course of whatever corruption, the course of destruction, again starts with mindsets, experience, culture. If you grew up in an environment where the mindset or culture or personalities based on inhuman or corruption, that's the mindset you continue to practice. We are creatures of habits. So the habits that we showcase or we practice is based on our mindset. Our mindset is determined by our belief system. So until we change our mindset, there will be no economic growth, no spiritual growth, no personal growth, no social growth. And when you look at from an economics perspective, the word growth is actually the rate of expansion of a country when talking about gross domestic product. So now think about it as an individual person. If you're not expanding, if your knowledge is not going beyond your mindset, your old qualification, your old knowledge, you're not growing, you're dying, you're depreciating. In accounting, there's something called depreciation. So when you buy a car from you drove the car from the showroom, the moment you bought the car and then you drove it away and the value starts depreciating. And that's the same thing. The moment that we've acquired knowledge, we gain knowledge. If we're not growing, we're just diminishing because, for example, you mentioned about technology, and again, talk about growth. The technological world emerged, if I'm correct, between the 50s and the late 70s, right? And businesses at that time in the 19th century, in the industrialization, were focused on brick and mortar. What that means is that if you want to create a business, one thing I learned about marketing when I did my business, so marketing, we got something called source stack analysis. What source stack means is that S represents what's equal situation analysis, where we do SWOT analysis. You assess the internal environments and the external environment. I use that in my coaching system and our businesses. So, for example, if you come to me or someone comes to me to help them for personal development or whatever issues they got, I use one of my strategic approach, SWOT analysis. S, strengths, W, weakness, and O, opportunities and threats. So when you divide it, the first two, S, W, is the internal environment. So your mind, I'll try to understand. I don't give solutions just like that without diagnosing your problem. Because sometimes we say we want this, but we don't know that the things that we want is not what we need to thrive. So I use that approach for people to understand. So until we change our mindset, we cannot grow. So the mindset is the reason for the war in Sierra Leone, is the reason for problems you mentioned in Nigeria. You mentioned about key factors that I highlighted as you were speaking about thinking. People don't think, and again, it reflects what I'm talking about, mindset. And you cannot think when you're running because you're in the moment, and that's again resonate with one of my philosophies. Because I'm here with you, imagine give you my 100% attention. Everything you speak to me goes through and goes away. So I wouldn't connect with you. So and again, everything in life, the causes of war or the pains that we go through in life is due to mindset. And until we change, as Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. What that means is that we as people, we created wars. We destroy people in Sierra Leone. I'm talking about Sierra Leoneans. Yeah, and people can take it and learn from other places. So war, God did not create war. And the concept of war itself, war did not create itself. Does that make sense? I'm speaking metaphorically. The war is a situation, it's a condition. The condition did not create itself, but as the thoughts in the Bible are not. I like to make reference to the Bible because I grew up as a Muslim, and then I gravitated towards Christian because I dreamt of Christ, and then I realized that the Bible is one of the most inspirational and strategic books that we use to learn. Consists of 66 books. 27 books resonate with the birth, life, crucifixion, and resurrection of Christ. And the 39 books resonate with the Old Testament. So each of those books, the Bible is not a book. The Bible is a content of different books. So the Bible says where there is lack of vision and the people perish or suffer constraints, that Proverbs 29:18. So thus we lack vision of that leadership, because leaders have vision, that foresight. And for them to have that foresight, they need over whatever issues. And I love the fact that you said before we think about solutions, we need to think about the problems. A lot of people don't understand that. In the field of design thinking, innovation management, I learned how to deal with issues. And those are some of the strategies I used. So firstly, and for example, if my vision solely focus on making money to give people quick inspiration, and I know how to do, I can speak precise, I can be brief and precise and concise, depending on the situation. I can speak 1 minute to captivate your attention, but I'm elaborating because my vision, as I said, is not so much to do with how many financial wealth I had gained, though my vision is to become financially wealthy, but how many lives I've impacted along the way until I cannot breathe anymore. So the point I'm trying to say is that you mentioned valuable points. I've seen business people, I've heard many business people, so-called entrepreneurs or coaches and mentors, they're trying to help people. Focus on the solution. Like, for example, the solution, trying to give people like those fancy resorts and this leads and everything, but they don't discuss about the issues. So and some for the audience to learn. So I'll give you, if you want to be precise, the situation. If you ask me to speak for 1 minute to sell myself, I can do that because I'm trained myself, I've developed. So we use something, I'll give a takeaway here. So problem statement, back it up with evidence or storytelling. And then the next phase of it is the solution, is the vision. It has to be determined by 3 important factors. The vision, what you're trying to accomplish, it has to be innovative because it's not old mindset. New innovation is new things that will create value, and then it has to be what's it called, empathetic, like emotional affect, and then the next phase. This is like storytelling. First, problem statement, as we were discussing about the issues, mindset, and then the solution. And then the next is what we intend to accomplish. That's the output. The first output to be with the outcome to help the people of Sierra Leone, or they help the people or in humanity. And then the longer output will be if we help people to think, growth mindset, power them, whatever tools, then a society will have that burden of the destruction of humanity. Does that make sense? As Thomas Jefferson once said, the care of human and the care of human and happiness and not their destruction should be the first and only legitimate object of good government.
On the question of good government, of course, we'll always come to that because it's central to what is happening and what can possibly happen and what has happened before. Because for however long we want to look back in history, the moment we organize society, the importance of leadership have become sacrosanct. This is because the generality of the people do not have, I don't want to say they don't have the possibility of thinking, of reasoning, but they just don't reason. The generality of people. So they need people who can lead them somewhere. If we have a good leader, the resources that we have at home in Africa is more than enough for us to live quality life. We will never have to run away. All these thousands of people that are dying in the Sahara Desert to cross to Europe, for what? Now, I want somebody to reflect on something. I was interviewing an assistant professor in the US a couple of weeks ago, and he made mention of something important I think I was sharing with you before, of the concept of what is evil mean by a person. It might look very simple, but it's actually profound in that he is saying that as a human being, seen from an African perspective, you are not just an individual. You are a person who is connected to your ancestors, which is those that have come here before you. You are also connected to the unborn, those who will be after you. So that the world doesn't really circle around you. You are just in a mission, you are just part of it. To add to that, a couple of days ago, I published an article. Actually, when I was writing this article, I wanted to write something like, I think, 1,000 words or 1,200 words. That is more like the length I usually write for my articles. Because I wanted to talk about Esan spirituality. I'm coming from Esan. So I wanted to talk about Ehi, which is a sort of your divine guidance as a person. Okay, talking of African spirituality now, Ehi, which is your divine guidance, is the one that leads you to where you want to go. But your Ehi is a pre-life, that your Ehi that be in existence before you were born. Your Ehi will never die. The day that you will die, your Ehi will live on. What this also means now is that we need to have a vision that is beyond just our physical body and our immediate environment. The decision we take has a reverberating effect on the entire humanity. Now, what does it mean? How important is this to our life and the choices that we make? It means now that if I take a decision, I know that this decision might be good for me now, but it's going to hurt several generations that are going to come after me. And I know that I am part of this circle. I should be careful how I make that decision. Because it's not just about me. I am in a chain of generation. But if I don't understand it like that, if I think that it is all just about me, I can actually blow out this world. Because it's about me. I will save myself and sacrifice humanity. Maybe we need to do some basics, some basic understanding of maybe what you can call the arithmetic of life. Are we sure we know what we are doing? Now, I was interviewing a man. He was part of the Nkrumah government when Nkrumah was still alive and, of course, the president of Ghana. And I made the same reference a couple of days ago because a Guinea-Bissau person who is a Radio Vatican journalist wrote a book about Amilcar Cabral, who is also the godfather or the founding father of the independence of Guinea-Bissau. Now, the question is this. This bigger than life individual, the idea that they expose in the world, did the ordinary people understand it? Because you see now, when Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, he was going to Vietnam to intervene, to try and make peace between the United States and Vietnam. Of course, we can understand, we are going to touch about it again, maybe later in the conversation, that the CIA will not like this. There are many other forces outside that might want to overthrow Nkrumah, and of course, it did happen. But this is the question I was asking the man, and I asked also the journalists a couple of days ago. When Nkrumah was ousted from power, what did the people of Ghana do? Of course, they didn't do very much. Why? Because they didn't probably understand what was the idea. Now, what is a people? I'm not talking of few individuals who might be affectionate of the situation. I'm talking of the masses. Because if the masses understand and they stand on the way of the military in Ghana do not have the power to be able to crush the people of Ghana. But if the people do not understand, you can give them some cheeky change. Few or maybe 100 people will protest, but 100 people cannot stand against an institution. Now, this is my question. Coming back to Sierra Leone, those problems that you articulated, were they understood? Were they really clear to the people before 1999? Sorry, before 1991, which was the beginning of the war?
What a critical question, I would say. And also, I love that you shared. You made reference to the mindset of people and Kuma and the Ghanaian people. So, and again, it's all to do with mindset. And the question you ask, because during the time when the rebel war started in Sierra Leone, as I said, in 1991, at that time I was a child. I didn't even know, and I remember when the situation first happened, because remember, the war started in Liberia. And Sierra Leone was a peaceful nation, very tolerant people, nation. I'm telling you, you'll see Muslims celebrate Christmas Day. They celebrate with Christians, and you see Christians likewise. So we have that. Growing up as a child in Sierra Leone, we had that beauty, that culture is still there, but I think some of the values have been, I would say, driven away due to political corruptions, and again, due to this change of mindsets, civilizations, because it's all to do with culture. And I mentioned previously, because culture is mindset, culture shape values. So the culture because culture is part of the human development progression. So as a child, when the situation happened, we were very peaceful, and we allowed. Again, I read Things Fall Apart by late Chinua Achebe. The center cannot hold, mere anarchy looks up on the world. And I still remember this. Can you imagine, over 20 years, 25 years ago, as a child? So, Chinua Achebe, Okonko, one of the key characters in the book, in the literature book, said, again, it's to do with this issue of the destruction or the falling of the African. It says that we were amazed at our foolishness and we allow them to stay. I'm just peeking in for you. We allow them to stay, and then they have won our clan, and our culture can no longer act as one. I'm just paraphrasing from what I learned from Things Fall Apart. So we allow foreigners, just like the same saying I mentioned about the fact that if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. So Sierra Leone were very peaceful. So when the rebel war started in Liberia, it got intense. So we opened the door. So I remember in the 90s when those Liberians were flowing, running away, fleeing away from the rebels from Liberia. We opened door for them. We accommodated them, not knowing that we were creating opportunity for rebels to move in. So, and then some of the people that we accommodated were let into the countries, became rebels, or they were rebels. So at that time, we have President, wasn't President I think President Momo. I hope I'm correct in that because I was a child at that time. I have to look, because President Momo. And that was the time again I mentioned about my father, my late father. They were fighting for them to receive their pay, their money. So remember this, I'm telling you now, this we're talking about mindset, leadership. So just for you to understand the root causes of how it develops based on my own understanding. So there were frustrations within the political realm between APC and SLPP. So because SLPP and APC are two major political parties, the current government as SLPP political party, and then you got APC. And that saying that I think it was APC first, and then APC was the major political party that was introduced because Sierra Leone gained the independence in 1961. So they fought for that. And then during that time, when they were fighting, during that political discussions, and they have this disputes, and then you have breakaway groups, a group of people who formed the SLPP that became one of the major political parties. So they were fighting about independence, not independence, or all these political issues. So remember now, you said 1961. So this gradually started building up until 1990 in the 90s. And then the rebel war happened in Sierra Leone. And then some people were not happy, were against the current government at that time, and then decided to go against the elected government. And then it built onto that, and different people, because of mindset, they were not happy. So it was economic, to do with economic factors, nepotism, political parties. So all of this build up, these are the root causes that they don't discuss about. Yeah, for as a child, I'm aware about this. And if you asking me questions, just reminded me to go back to reflect into those memories. Because my hippocampus, I've got a good memory. I could remember things, just trigger my mind, and my hippocampus will be activated. So, and I remember how it builds up. So it developed from that. And then when we opened the door for the rebels, so it was easy access. So Fode Sanko, one of the leaders of the rebel leaders, and then you got Charles Taylor, who from Liberia, who was a rebel leader in Liberia, hence was part of the war crisis. So you see, so this started, and then we created this war, or this war crisis for ourselves within the African continent, Liberians and Sierra Leoneans, right? And then, obviously, if you're a business person and we're talking about vision, your vision, you don't care about humanity, just like you mentioned earlier. And then you just want to sell. I don't want to go deep into that. Things that would destroy a human being. You care about what you have received. So there's so opportunity. For example, these two people, like rebels and versus the government, they're fighting. So it's an opportunity for them to sell whatever they're selling. So from a capitalist point of view, it makes sense, right? So they saw the opportunity. So that's why the things build up. And then the war started happening. The war ignited in Sierra Leone. So these are the root causes they don't discuss. So it's just the tip of the iceberg experience. So it happens to do with ourselves as a Sierra Leoneans and humanity who opened the door and also collaborated with people from outside. And this is not the local people, as you said, the masses who are suffering. These are people who have the opportunity to run the country or to create, to pave the way for other people to destroy, who have the opportunity for people to create economic growth. So if you open the door to people, for people to enter your house, so whatever they cause in your house, you can't blame the people for the person who opened the door. So that was the reason that was the reason why, one of the reasons or one of the factors, so to speak, why we experienced a civil war crisis in the early days. So because of there was corruption within the political realm, and then the situation happened wherein the rebels were there, and obviously they paid them to fight, and they started fighting. And not only that, and some were forcefully, young people. For me, I was lucky. I don't want to use it as luck because I try to, whenever I say that, I think about I'm not lucky. I'll just say it's a blessing, or maybe God wanted me to be alive today to help many people have helped along the way for me to be where I am today. So that was the reason perhaps why I am I've been alive to date, because a lot of people were not fortunate to be alive today. So they experience death. Some experience torture, where they chop their limbs. See, many young adults now, Sierra Leone, at that time they were young, when they chopped their, I was chased by rebels. So the point I was trying to say is that so some of the younger people, the younger generations who became part of the rebels, were forcefully indoctrinated to join the force. And some of them saw their parents being killed, so they have no choice but to join. And they were giving them gunpowder from the cartridge. They were giving them drugs, so they were acting not by their own will. So they destroyed them with these toxic substances, and then they became monsters. So that's, and then destruction happened. You see 8-year-old, 10-year-old boy dragging guns, AK-47, and then carrying machete, axes, and everything. So all of these things, where I saw them, so it was to do with this political corruption or disputes that led into the destruction of humanity as a result of the Civil War crisis. In fact, not only that, and many people lost their lives. And remember, I mentioned in the first episode we did, where I mentioned that for me and my family, we were lucky, or blessed, or so to speak, fortunate to escape, because they were looking to kill us. So they were looking for my dad's head. They were singing. So we were staying at the National Stadium at that time. We didn't have a place to stay. When we received the news that we shouldn't go back to our area, neighbors were looking for us. Can you imagine? Neighbors were looking to kill us. They were saying they want my dad's head. So these are the things that we say. The rebel war, as you asked earlier on, it's not what a lot of people are seeing in Hollywood or in the media. It's deeper than that. Those information, those images, they're just the tip of the iceberg of the war. Or unless you actually speak to people like us, people who experience it, who were there. Not everything we're shown. Because anyway, I don't want to go deep there. I think something I was going to, but I'll just leave it as that. Because when I came here, and I said, the British soldiers, they've ended the war. I just smiled. I saw them at the National Stadium when they were marching at that time. The rebels were not in the city anymore, but I'll just leave it as that.
Anyway, because you made mention of the British, I wanted to spend a few seconds about that, which is maybe what can be the possible influence of foreign influence. But again, this is also important to be understood within a framework that if there were no enemy within, the enemy without could do no harm. But I would like also start this part looking at even the Sierra Leonean independence. Sierra Leone, I think, got independence in April 1961.
April 27, 1961. Yeah, that's correct.
All right. Now, this is also another question I often ask about the so-called independence. See, this is what I'm calling it now, the so-called independence. Because they say we happen in Nigeria, we are independence, yeah? In many other countries in Africa, we are independence. But do we really understand what that term means? Are we really independence in the sense of being independent, that we are able to run our politics, able to formulate our idea? You see, France still look at the colony that they have in Africa as their colony. Colony meaning, when you have a university, usually, maybe the university is not big enough to host everybody. Usually we create an extra, maybe dormitory or a campus, you will call it, a satellite campus. Now, satellite campus are not the main university. They are just a subsidiary of the main university. So that when the European were, or how they look at Africa, of course, looking at how they splitted Africa out in the Berlin Conference, they don't really look at us as a people. They look at us as object, that we are part of the vegetation. They need to run us for the main economy. The main economy are the metropoles. Talking of the London economy, the Paris economy, the United States economy, because the United States will become also very active in Africa. When they say have gotten independence, they will not allow other people to be independent. And of course, they don't do it directly, they do it indirectly. And except maybe your brain is not working, you can understand, because we are not saying this happened in 1 year. For several centuries, at least you can decode what is happening. Now, when we say we are independent, that Sierra Leone got independence 1961, what kind of what kind of agreement was actually reached? Because I didn't see many African people really driving out the British. Therefore, we signed a contract. But what kind of a contract is that gives you independence? How independent are we really as African people? Okay, I'm not trying to say we need to shift all the responsibility to the European or the American who are playing their dirty games in Africa. But sometimes we cannot also avoid that because it's part of the game. So help me understand that part. Or should we totally ignore it?
I'll just mention, we will ignore it a bit, but I'm just, as you mentioned, something that compel me to share my thoughts about that. I'm smiling, trying to compose myself and my words. When you get to know me, I've got different ways of expressing myself. I can do it in a calm way. I can do it, and depends on the spirits. Yeah. So let me be calm for a minute. So when you mention about the word independence, just last month, not long ago, less than a week ago, I would say, Sierra Leone celebrated 63 so-called independence. I don't celebrate. I used to. Why? Why I used to? Because my mindset, again, as I said, I didn't know what I know. I I only knew what I knew last time I was celebrating. I didn't know about my purpose in life. I didn't know about the essence of growth or humanity, all of those things. You talk about spirituality. So I didn't have the knowledge that I have. I didn't have the wisdom that I have. My definition, I'll share this, one of my quotes. It will be on your platform. I've shared it before. Wisdom is freedom. You cannot free yourself without wisdom. But we are not absolutely free in society, but we can be free within from spirituality. These are things I mentioned in my book. If I had not gained that wealth, when I tell people I'm successful, I don't brag about it. I'm saying it with unapologetically, because I'm coming from a place of traumatic experience, civil war crisis, the state of poverty our society would describe. I've experienced that homelessness crisis. I've got injury, as you can see. This was my depression I was going through when I was doing my master's. I don't know if people can see the Mac hair. See, I can't even, wait, let me see. I can't even see the stitches there. Yeah, I was meant to undergo. See, I can't fold this because of depression. When I tell people I help people mental health issues, I can't fold my hand because of stress. I was meant to undergo another second operation just before the pandemic, because I allowed outside forces, the so-called things in society, success, all the things, because I wanted to accomplish my master's. I was going through this because of something I stood for. So, and people, some few people were fighting me within the institution I was studying and everything. So I allowed them to overwhelm me. I opened the door to my heart. So I let that depression affect me. I could not sleep and I went to bed. And that's when half of my body, I lost circulation. I woke up and I had a family friend who was living in my, it came from Sierra Leone to renew his British passport at that time. He was living in, it was sitting in my living room when he said, "Buck, have you submitted your proposal?" Because I was stressed. I submitted it on that day night. I said, "Okay, I need to sleep because I've got another assignment to submit, and I shouldn't have reviewed those assignments because of the situation I was dealing with at that time." So it was beyond my control, the threats I was dealing with. So I allowed this. I gave power. Though I have helped myself to cope with PTSD, chronic stress, depression, due to my experience in studying sociology and nursing, well learned about stress. So though I've helped, but again, life is growth and development. But because of the ambition, I learned that ambition is the destruction of human progress. So ambition, I tend not to have ambition. When you look at the word ambition, it's that eager, we long for things. No, I don't have ambition no more. I try not to have ambition. A lot of people, this I said in my book, a lot of people, we must not have ambition, but inspiration. The inspiration is led by the vision. We need to change that desire for outside success is the reason why many people have committed suicide, is the reason why some of us, we experience that. So as a result of that, I learned now to look inside myself to seek success. That's why when we were publishing this book last year, and that and the mindset of greatness, I'm one of the author of that, as you can see there. One of the author. Yeah, and my mindset, my topic, my chapter there is philosophy and recipes of greatness, and my definition of success is internal affairs, and I see it as a dichotomy. And my definition of success is dichotomy. What that means is that it comes from internal, and then because of that internal strength that we have, that greatness, and then it reflects that the value we create in society, that's the outside, then we achieve success. From a social perspective or economic perspective, success, when you set goals or the vision you have, we accomplish it, and that's success. And now it's outdated. Then the question is, what next? So that's why if you're not going, you're not thriving. So once I learned that, I've experienced all of mental crisis, war, crisis, depression, family relationship issues, or having the suicide thoughts and everything, I realized that wealth is within. All the creation that we see, regulation, government regulations, innovation, and everything, it all starts from the mindset, imagination. It all starts from within. So that's where success. If you're not successful within, so all the things that you bring on the outside will be a reflection of your mentalization, of your mindset. So what I'm trying to say is that so we cannot achieve wealth. We cannot realize wealth until we change, we become that.
So how do you connect that to the possible influence, outside influence to the Sierra Leone crisis?
It's all to do with mindsets. So, sorry, let me position. I keep kicking this. Sorry about this. So, in the future, I'll change position for that. So, you asked the question: how can we change or deal with a situation wherein, like, for example, the external forces influence the war crisis or the problems we're going through in Sierra Leone or Africa? So, remember. Think about plants. Yeah? Think about plants or crops. You cannot grow crops, or no plants can grow in the air without the soil. I explain this in my book. You cannot grow nothing without soil. So, as a human beings, right? Soil is inner, it's in the darkness. So everything outside is extra. So the weather condition can influence the growth or the development of any crops, right? So you cannot change that. But for the opportunity for an opportunity for growth opportunity to occur, there has to be the driven force from within, underneath, within the darkness. So it's inside. So if someone comes to influence me or you, Obehi, if you don't allow them to influence you, they will have no power. One of my quotes, I said, the moments, I said, the second you allow your peace, happiness, or success is determined by external forces or people. And that's the moment you've opened the door for society or external forces to break your heart. So the second we allow ourselves to be determined to be successful on the outside world without our action, that's the moment we've actually allowed people to influence us. So in a nutshell, we cannot become successful without ourselves, without our mindset, our thoughts, because I will not influence you if you don't allow my words. Words in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and God was the word. First John, if I'm correct, First John. I'm not an expert when it comes to the Bible, but that's some of the lessons I've learned. Say, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and God was the word. So in the beginning, for every action, yeah, there was an imagination, a thought, or a vision within. So if I influence you to do things, it could be based on my vision, but my conviction would stop your vision. And that once you stop that, then I will not have much, because motivation is an action. Motivation fades away. That's what initially I used to consider myself as a motivational speaker. I said no. And I tell people I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm an inspirational speaker. I am that I am. So I speak life. Inspiration is spirit. Words are spirits. Words are God. If Genesis 1:26 says that we are the image of God and God created us, and we must use our mind to take dominion over every creeping creatures on earth, the birds in the air, the fishes in the seas. So what that means is that God created us and we have the mind. For example, I use this when I'm doing my mentorship and coaching session, even with people. Close your eyes for a minute. If I do a sign, if that sign is deemed by as immoral, like the F word, like when you use the middle finger, if I use it, if you close your eyes, you will not react. But if I use it when you open your eyes, you're looking at me, right? You respond to it, you say, oh, Buck, you just abused me, you cussed me, right? So what that means is that it's your thoughts. But again, you have not composed yourself. You don't have voice. Like you don't have the mindset to say that, you know what, Buck or Buckarie, what Buckarie said to me to say, oh, Obehi, you're this, or you're an African, you will never thrive, you never become successful. If your mindset was not dimmed by my influence, you don't have the conviction, you don't have your value, you don't know your worth. Know thyself, you don't know yourself. Because when you know your worth, you know that, you know what, I don't care what Buck says to me. So it can use words. You can use stick and weapons, physical weapon, guns to destroy me, but your words can never destroy me. So again, so the external foreigners, Americans, the government, all of these things that we talk about, third parties, we need to understand, as a business person, we need to understand that they're business people. So they're fighting for themselves. They're fighting for where for example, where I'm living in the UK, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the fact that I'm here, and they give me the opportunity. But guess what? The reason why I'm enjoying what I'm enjoying in this society, though there are economic crises we're going through here, but remember, we have a favorable economic climate in the UK as opposed to Sierra Leone, because people build system for themselves and for society. So if they go to Africa, for example, they take the resources that we have, they come in. We need to understand that they're business people, they're capitalists. So my question will be, why can't we be capitalists? Why can't we be the leader that will negotiate ideas, to have to work with them, not to fight with them? Don't fight your enemies, especially when it comes to economic, in the global economy. Be friends with them, but empower yourself with them. Go inside, as I mentioned about the plans, develop yourself, because when we go inside, right, and you mentioned about spirituality, I use holistic approach when I'm coaching and helping people. So whether you think you're a spiritual person or not, for me, we are spiritual beings. That sperm, when you look at the sperms from a scientific perspective or biological perspective, you look at sperms, right, the cells, you don't see all of this physical object like my nails, my hair. You don't see them. And spirit is something that you cannot touch. It's something that you can't physically see, you experience. But if you have the understanding of human intelligence, some people say artificial intelligence. I don't believe in that. It's I call it human intelligence. It's a byproduct of human intelligence. It comes from within, right? So we need to we need to go inside and assess, do what I call self-assessment, nation assessment, community assessment, or whatever that SWOT analysis approach as. We assess ourselves. We need to look, for example, what strengths do we have to position ourselves, or as a nation, strategically to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace? What strength do we have? So, and then we look at the weaknesses we have. What is strength? The strengths that we have resources. We have diamonds, we have gold, we have bauxite, we have minerals. For example, that the people from the West, the economists from the West, they're using, they need. So we have that strengths. But our weaknesses, we don't have the leadership mindset, we don't have the vision, we didn't have that strategy, we didn't have the education, the right education. And you mentioned about education, right? When you're talking about university, as you were speaking, and my hippocampus just went back into the memory lane. I don't know if you've researched this. In 1827, if I'm correct, the first university was built in West Africa, in Sierra Leone, called Forabe College. And Sierra Leone was seen as the anthem in West Africa when it comes to education. And you have foreign students we are going to Sierra Leone. Even Tony Blair, the former prime minister in the UK, his dad lectured, if I'm correct, or granddad lectured in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone had that quality education. But now, do we have a quality educational system? I would say no to that. That's the shortest answer. So we need reformations. But what went wrong? And in fact, one of the first lawyer or barrister who practiced law in the UK, black law, was born in Sierra Leone, came from Waterloo in Sierra Leone. Christian Cole was the first person who, this research case I didn't prepare.
Now let's look at maybe what could have been done differently, and so that we can also look at maybe some of the effect and consequences of the war. Now, based on all the information that you have shared, based on your understanding of everything that you have seen now, you talked of the rebels that came from Liberia, and of course, many of that situation that might not be visible that contributed to the moment. What do you think would have been the right action to take to avert the war so that the war will not take place?
Okay, I'll answer in a precise form and then we can elaborate if you want. So, remember we're talking about problems, right? For the cause and effects. So, what's the cause of war? To be precise, it's human attitude, behavior. It could be ego, right? Or it could be unhappiness, right? For example, unemployment rates, from the economic perspective, is seen as a crucial factor that creates negative emotions that makes people worry about their stability. Where there is large, the rate of employment rates is higher. Poverty, for me, poverty is a mindset, but from an economic perspective, less for people to understand. Let's put it that way. So where there is the high rate of unemployment rate in Sierra Leone, which is that's the case, right? Suffering, criminal activity is there, and the younger people, they become vulnerable to negative influence. So some of them, they voluntarily join because they don't have jobs. They become rebel. As I'm speaking right now, many of them, they're into doing kush, and kush is affecting the nation. I think I wrote briefly about that. I made a prediction a couple of years ago, and about the fact that if the governments or people don't take action, or as people, as nation, to eradicate the destruction of the toxic or the issues among the criminal activities or the problems of the younger generations, Sierra Leone, within the next 5 years, at that time when I made that statement, would suffer high rates of mental health crisis and lack of quality leadership within the government, because the younger generations are growing because the older generations are dying. They go first. There is something called first in, first out when it comes to the food industry, for example. So technically, the older people are more likely to go. So if we're talking about, if the leaders, the elders, if we don't create that viable environment to empower the next generation or the current generations with the right mindsets to thrive entrepreneurially or from an innovative perspective, guess what will happen? Nothing will change. As I said about mindset, but I once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. In my own understanding, we cannot change the problem in Sierra Leone or in Africa with the same fixed mindset or destructive mindset we used when we created war crisis, corruption, until will change and lose that old mindset. I discussed about a brother from another mother, Sierra Leone, Andrew Bright. He is doing a series, burnout series. We on Wednesday, last Wednesday, we spoke about depersonalization, and it's also means with emotional detachment. But I didn't have much time because of so many speakers. I didn't have much time to talk about that. So what that means is that we need the crisis in Sierra Leone and the issue because of the mindset that we have, that greed. You have people who have political influence, so-called managers. Because remember, leaders, they see visions, right? They have strategies, they have visions. But if you're a leader, you're in a leadership position, and you don't have the vision, you don't have the strategic mindset, how can you lead people, your nation, or your team? That's another food for thought. So now, and then the managers, from a management perspective, are officials or managers or supposed to be entrepreneurs to manage the direction or the strategies or the vision of that leader to lead, to make sure that the country, the nation, or community or business is thriving, creating values, meeting the needs of the people or the target audience, and realize their growth from an economic perspective. But if with a leader, you don't have the right mindsets, the growth mindsets, when it comes to hiring people to work with or looking for key stakeholders to work with, guess what would happen? Nothing would happen. And where there's no vision, they perish. And that's the problem. The cause is to do with the mindset. So to eradicate, one of the solutions to eradicate that is to brainwash ourselves with innovative mindset, innovation, to clean ourselves, to say, you know what? You know, it's very complex. It's easier said than done. It comes with education, right? And there's so many reformation we need to do. Firstly, we need to change the information them in Sierra Leone. They're still teaching people things that they're not helping economies to grow. Here in the UK, I my master's was not there in the past. The title innovation, the MSc Design Innovation Management. It was unique when I started. Yeah, and there are people sometimes when I mention what does that mean, they don't even know that what I studied, 8 modules, involves entrepreneurship, intellectual property, collaboration, design thinking, design innovation projects. All of this are like intellectual property. All of this I learned that in that program. So this a new mindset. This a new culture. So Sierra Leone, when you look at the educational system, we were not growing. We were still doing the same thing, and we cannot change. And I keep using Albert Einstein quote because it's very impactful, very profound. We cannot change until we change our mindset. And Gandhi once said, we have to be the change we want to see. We were very religious. I always say to people, we celebrated independence, but we are not independent. We're dependent. So what are we celebrating? And as you mentioned, rightly, so what are we celebrating? And people focus on entertainment, but not development. We focus on instant gratifications, but not long-term transformation. And it all comes to with mindset education. It's very difficult until people realize, like I've realized.
But how are the people going to realize it? Is it not a cycle? Is it not a vicious cycle? Is it not like the snake that is turning around in a circle? Because the consequences of the lack of mindset is what produced the leader that lack mindset. And those leaders produce a situation that lead people not having mindset. Because you are saying that we need education, but the society produces a type of education that does not encourage the development of mindset, and that lead to creating the type of leadership that we have that then go around in a circle. When are we going to break that circle? I think that also is going to be important for us. Anyway, but before we move there, I want us to spend a few seconds talking about the actual effects of the war. Now, Even though you are in the UK, you do have friends or family members. Even if you don't have family members, but you do have friends in Sierra Leone. When you look at them, when you examine the Sierra Leone situation, what do you see as the effect of the war? So that we say, if this war have never taken place, the country would have been a different place. It would have been like this, but now it's like this. Help us understand the economic effect of the war.
Talking about the economic effects of the war, I would mention key factors. Some of the factors, the effects of the war, obviously a high employment rate. But the first thing actually destroy future generations. Many lives were lost, right? I've got family member, one of my uncles, and bombshell, he passed away and he lost his hand, one of his hands, and then he died after because he survived the bomb. And then there are family members or other people, close neighbors who passed away. So that the effects of that war, obviously loss of lives. That's the obvious. And then the other fact is that economic crisis create poverty from the economic perspective. And then the other effects is unemployment rates. So, and then you drive private sectors away. Remember, the government does not build a nation alone. If you study the economics of the development world where we live, right? Majority of about let me say perhaps 90%, for example, in Sierra Leone, I believe, or no, in the world globally, about 90% private. The economics, the agents that drives economic growth comes from the private sector, and that private sector includes three important factors. And you have workers, right? And if there is no work, how can work and people work? Because when people work, they pay tax, they generate revenues, they live, they don't stress because when you're unemployed. So the effect of that, when there is work, people can eat at least the basic needs. That reflects to Maslow hierarchy of needs, the basic needs, food and shelter. People can it would help to reduce stress and worries. And then the other effect is, okay, the private sector, one, workers, and then the other factor, markets, and then firms. Firms means businesses. So if there's war crisis, just like Sierra Leone, on and off, we have the status quo in Sierra Leone right now. The existing states is not favorable for economic. I'm saying this, and today, we're in May now, 2024. I'm saying it, and that's the truth. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So even people like me as well, I'm looking to do business in Sierra Leone. I've done business there, was not successful, but for me, it was a lesson I've learned, and that's helped me to be where I am. So if the economic climate is not favorable to entrepreneurs or private investors, even foreign investors, say, and it would not happen, and it would affect the GDP, the economic growth, and the output, the rate of the economic growth in Sierra Leone. So as a result of the war crisis, so many private sectors, firms, they left the country, So, and even now, some of them, they're skeptical. Some of them, they're still there, right? So that's the effect of the war. And then the other effects would be to do with the fact that it affects progression. In terms of, for example, when I was in Sierra Leone, we lost a year because we could not take the national exam because of the rebel war. There was in the classroom, we hear gunshots, and they were trying to ask us to go home. We were studying in the war crisis, Say that's the effect, and it also affects mental health. So many people right now, coming from that mental health awareness perspective, studying psychology, I can see the effect of the war even to date. The war ended 2002. Over 20 years ago, still people are going through the PTSD because a lot of people, they've not dealt with it. So as a result of the effect of the war, chronic stress and depression occurred within the mind of Sierra Leoneans. People like me, I was able to cope with it, dealt with it, and work with myself spiritually, holistically, and then face the reality of life. That's all the things that I used to stress for outside me. Even my businesses in the UK, I'm developing some of businesses I'm going through, I'm dealing with. I've lost lots of money, thousands of pounds, building my fashion business. Even I started a cleaning business during just before the pandemic, and I lost customers because of the pandemic. Some of them, they are foreigners, wealthy customers. They went away. So those are the effects of when you have instability in a country. That's what will happen, and that's threats. When you look at a SWOT analysis perspective, so the wars are threats, and the threats. The thing I've learned is that we cannot control the effects of external factors within the environment, within society. But the establishment of our mindset can help us to thrive. In fact, from an entrepreneurship perspective, opportunities or crisis, adversities, opportunities for economic growth. So where there is no problem, there is no business. So Sierra Leone is an environment for businesses. We must not run away from it. So the government cannot create economic growth alone. People like you, entrepreneurs, we have to look at these problems and then identify. So those are the effects that the war created. The effects the war created. One of the effects, as I said, opportunities, because where there are problems, there are opportunities for us to thrive, to be innovative. And the only way we can grow from problems is to apply innovation. Where there is no innovation, there is no transformation. And the digital era that we live in is due to the fact that we grew from the industrialization era during the time when Ford was seen as innovation, Fordism, the motor industry. So we have to grow. So the effect of that war, I think now we must use it as an opportunity to thrive. And you mentioned about education. Very interesting when I said that education is important. In a book that as one of the 70 leaders, I mentioned about 3 aspects that we must embrace as an individual person, whether you're a business person, and when it comes to education. Informal, formal, and non-formal. So whichever route you took. I'm not saying the educational system. Remember, it's funny how some people say education is not important, but most of the so-called entrepreneurs who did not go to school or drop out from school, guess who are working for them? Educated people, because they have a system. So in other words, it's to be part of the system, not to be out of the system. Learn from the system, then create your own system. Change your mindset. You don't have to follow what I am teaching you or what the educational system is teaching you, but it will be viable to learn from the educational system, because the educational system is important because it shapes our values, it shapes society. So we must not shy away from it. So, but constant education. And again, let me declare this. It is not the educational system that made me the person I am today, but the inspiration from God that influenced me to realize my greatness, to take dominion over my lives. The educational system is part of the foundation for me to be the person I am. If I had not gone through the educational system, did you think I'll be able to express myself in English? Do you think I'll be able to express myself from a strategic point of view, talking about strategy or leadership, innovation, entrepreneurship? No. So, but you don't have to be in the classroom to learn.
Yeah, everything is part of everything. Now we cannot simply just throw away any part of the society totally, because even in the worst part of us, there are also some good in it. So I think we, like you said, we need to look at it from the point of view of strategy. Even I remember also when you were referring to the role the outsider might have played in the Sierra Leonean civil war, like many other people or many other situations, that it is important that we acknowledge our responsibility. It is important that we acknowledge that it depends on us. And I say that quite often. It depends on us. Because this is an argument that will come up now again and again within the African diaspora conversation, and also within African and among African enlightened individuals, where we often accuse the European or the Euro-Western idea for the exploitation of Africa. That is true, only that is partly true. In 2010, I wrote a book that I titled Underdevelopment in Africa, My Hands Are Clean. In that, the title is actually a provocation saying that as Africans, we believe that we have no responsibility in what have happened to us and in what is continuously happening to us. Actually, a couple of days ago, we did 2 episodes. One is on colonialism. The other one is on slavery. But these are Italian. It's an Italian version of the Obehi Podcast, where we were saying, my thesis in the episode was that we cannot simply blame all that happened during the slavery as the European effort without our effort. And of course, besides that, we haven't even talked about the Islamic slavery that happened in Africa for at least 700 years. But even when we talk about the Islamic slavery in Africa or Islamic slave trade, which was actually more brutal to the African people, we need to realize that the Islamic world outside of Africa do not have the power, the logistics, and the resources to be able to conquer the African people. Everything that happened because there were the enemy within. Okay, this enemy within now will be our chiefs sometime. They are our leaders. They are also, they are also our business people because they are making business. That is how they saw it. And even in the transatlantic slave trade, we also need to understand that it also was a business. War were organized across Africa. Of course, these are arguments that we don't face oftentimes. We don't talk about it. We just want to blame the European for their role. Yes, that is correct. Only that is partly correct. The other part is us. If we did not participate in the slave trade, it will not exist. Okay, now let me explain what I mean. If the African people, the African elite, the African leaders, the African government, the African institution did not actively participate in slavery, these people will build up a defense against it. The Europeans then are left with one option: to kill the African people. But because they are business people, they would not like to do that because it would be very costly for them. How are you going to eliminate the entire African people? Which means that slave trade would have been put to an end without the participation of the African power. And this is talking about maturity. Unfortunately, many people among the African people don't want to reason it from the point of view of maturity. They like to play the victimhood, the victimhood, where you want to blame other people. Now, in line with that book also, in 2015, I was telling you about the documentary I did on Pan-Africanism, where I make mention of Sierra Leone, Nigeria Civil War, and also the Rwanda Civil War or genocide. That documentary is titled Pan-Africanism, Testing Idea on Reality. The thesis is the same, like the book, in that, okay, we are talking of Pan-Africanism, which is African brotherhood. But when we take African brotherhood, place it side by side with what was happening in Jos, Nigeria, where a lot of Nigerians were slaughtering their fellow Nigerians in the name of Islam and Christianity. Where do we place this brotherhood? If we talk of Sierra Leone, with all these people, you just literally say, give me your hand. You put on the hand on a wood, you just cut it off. This is your brother. And tomorrow we talk about brotherhood. What does that mean, brotherhood? In Rwanda, it will take them, I think, 3 months to kill nearly 1 million people. So what I'm saying in those work is that Africans, let's look for where is our responsibility in what is happening to us. Because even till date, there is a kind of a geopolitical shift, more like, no? In that where the West are living in Africa is being replaced by the Chinese and the Russians. And many Africans, including the so-called strategists, are looking at it that we have found a savior. But it is wrong. No, you cannot find a savior like that. You are simply finding another competitors who is going to play with you according to the game that you are playing. And which are this game? You can either play with them or play your own. Now, what I mean is this one. The Chinese and the Russians will never build Africa. It is not in their interest to do that. In fact, they will never do it even in 1 million years. But this is what is going to happen. If African people are intelligent enough to decide that this is what they want, if you want to play with me, these are the rules. Then they will play with African according to the African rules. Because again, nobody can conquer Africa except the African people. We want other people to come and help us. Do you see what was happening during the COVID-19? Africans are begging the Europeans, come and help us, give us, give us. But I was saying at the time, during that period, what if Africa have organized and say, okay, where in Italy, there were a lot of people that were dying. We are going to organize and send you money. How much money is Nigeria preparing to send to Italy? Instead, we are telling them, give me money, give me money. But if they are giving you money, do you remember that there are also conditions for those money? There is nothing free in this world. I'd like to also talk about the reconciliation. Because now, everything that have happened. We cannot keep on fighting forever. We are the Sierra Leonean. We are going to build this country like what the Rwandans did. We cannot blame it on the CIA. We cannot blame it on England. We cannot blame it on ECOMOG. We are the Sierra Leonean. Where do we go from here? What do you see as the strategic plan to heal the people so that we can move on? Because like I was saying before, if you don't tell me the truth, there is nothing you can do that will heal us.
So before I respond to that question, so what we can do to heal the nation and to resolve the frustrations and depreciation we're going through as a nation, Sierra Leonean, I would like to shed a bit of light or to share a few thoughts as you were speaking, just to honor the valuable share you shared when you mentioned about maturity, key aspects in terms of mentalities and within the African community. Maturity, and then you mentioned about responsibility, and you mentioned about the fact that nothing is free. I think you influenced me to share some of my hidden thoughts, at least to be on your platform, and then the world will know. So as you were speaking, when you said nothing is, and you said nothing is free, and yes, my mind, nothing is free except the mind that we have. We were born with mind free. We did not pay for it. But guess what? Because as a Sierra Leoneans or as Africans, we were held. There's a word I don't want to say, but I'm trying to be, I was going to say directly, but I think it'll be too harsh. But let me say this. Because we are ignorant, and then I will say the word, but in a polite way, because we're ignorant and foolish, right? So we've actually sold not our soul. We cannot sell. A lot of people say we sell souls. No, we've sold the power of our mind to outside forces. And now we've allowed those negative forces to influence us to destroy our lives. Society is a byproduct of humanity, and in fact, is synonymous to the word humanity. Society, group of people. It's a notions based on culture. So, if we have not given the power for external thoughts or notions to overwhelm our thoughts, those forces would not have led us into a state of poverty, distraction, corruption. Corruption is everywhere. When I was studying my undergrad business, in fact, there's a topic we study about, I think, corporate social responsibility, and we talk about fair trades, globalizations. These are issues we talk about when we were describing the meaning of corruption. Corruption is everywhere, and sometimes I smile when people from the West said, "Oh, Africans are corrupt." No, I'll leave it as that. We're all corrupt. We have corruption within our minds. And you mentioned about the slave trade. I would answer the question, but I just wanted to shed light because of what you shared. You influenced me to share what I'm sharing for the benefit of the audience. So you mentioned about the slave trade. And you mentioned about maturity. And this, I think, resonates with my philosophy, my mindset, and the successful person I am today. Right now, all the things I have, take them away from me. I am still successful. When I die, I don't carry them in my state of being. So I've learned when my mom and my dad passed away, they made me humble myself. When I talk to people, Buck, when I'm coaching or giving free ideas, Buck, you're supposed to be millionaire with your mindset. They judge me really quick. They judge me too quick. Right? And I said, don't judge me by what I possess outside. In fact, I don't possess anything. Remember I said the money we have in the bank account is not ours until we use it. The clothes that we have in our closet or wardrobe, they are not us. They're not ours. They're not ours until we put them on. My mom passed away, and the people did not even suffer to raise my mom. We are fighting for my mom's property. I'm telling you, this is actually a real life experience I'm sharing. So what that means is that if they take away even the resources that we claim to have, if you still have that free mind you were given from birth, you have the growth mindsets, you have the vision, you have the conviction, that dedication, trust me, you will thrive. Millionaire people of wealth before, if they have the right mindset, the same mindset they used to create that business, the attitude, not the fixed approach, the experience, because economic growth is determined by labor action, the force. If you don't have physical cash or whatever, but your idea can be an intellectual property. So the skills, if you have them, you can grow. So the point I'm trying to say is that we as Africans or Sierra Leoneans, majority of us, we are not matured mentally, spiritually, to realize the greatness that we have, to realize that we have the potentiality to gain prosperity in life. That's why we are suffering. We're not matured. Because to grow, to be successful in life, to grow, we have to be matured. What maturity? You mentioned what maturity on understanding. Maturity means that you've grown from your fixed mindset from where you were when you were not growing, when you were not developing. to where you are. That's maturity. Or it's a state of mind. When someone is trying to fight with you, you know what? You don't conform to the pattern or the attitude of that behavior, that actions. Romans 12:2 says that we must not, it said, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So that's maturity right there. And now responsibility, as you mentioned, we have to take responsibilities of our success, of the prosperity that we want. We pray. You mentioned about religion. We pray, but our action does not align to what we pray for. We have a vision, we have the desire to be wealthy, to be successful, but we don't act. We don't take all the tools to go to the farm, to act and to plow the earth to grow our own crops. So how can we grow if we're not planting? You can grow without planting. And when the farmer goes to the farm to plant, they don't stay there. They have the vision, the faith that nature would allow their crops to grow. They take efforts. The Bible, Genesis 1 says, take dominion. Plant, take responsibility. That's responsibility of our lives. We need to take responsibility. And you mentioned about religion. Yeah? Think about religion. Religion is just a nation of society, but it has nothing to do with divinity. This is my understanding. I embrace all the religious faith on earth, but my own faith that I've created for myself is humanity. So what that means is that I am human. If I'm treating you, any human beings, whether you have white, whatever skin color or identity you've actually acquired from society, I'll see you as my brother or sister. I will not see you as threats. If you see me as threat, that's fine. Unless you're trying to destroy me physically, then that's a physical threat. There are other means that we could consider you as a threat. But I would see you as not a threat. I will not see you as a competitor. I would see you as someone that I can work with to thrive. So it all comes with maturity mindset. So religion is a nation, it's a notion from inspiration from people, from other people. We have Christianity, religion. In fact, before Christianity, before Muslim, there was Christianity. Before Christianity, you have Buddhism, right? You have different religion. So all of this is just guide people. But if you look at all of this religion, right? If you study them, which I've studied, I've learned with my own limited mindset, it's all to do with internal happiness. It doesn't really matter because there's no religion is to make you unhappy. See, when you look, and as I mentioned about that, because when you think about the happiness of human beings, about their well-being, not their destruction, but for their progression in life, it's all to do with one thing. It doesn't really matter your religion. You're Christian, you're Muslim, you're Buddhist, you're Hindu. Let's embrace one another. But we need to realize that God, it doesn't matter what gods you have. But remember, to live is to survive today, is to survive and thrive. What that means is that when we sleep, we did not forcefully put ourselves to sleep. But nature, that nature is God, that divinity of God. No man, no scientist can prove. Led us to sleep, and then we woke up peacefully. One of my prayers, I normally encourage people to pray. For me, my prayer is thanksgiving, to give thanks. I said, God, thank you for putting me to sleep peacefully and gracefully without my consciousness. Now that I'm awake, I'm alive, I thank you, because there were many people went to bed. They did not wake up. Some of them end up in the hospital. So that's the success that we need to pray for. Not the things, God, give me success money. No, God will not give you. You need, God bless you with a mind So you need to find an environment to nurture it.
So that is the reconciliation, and that is the future that we are looking for in Sierra Leone. Now, first, before we conclude, how can people find you? Those who want to do business with you. Of course, the next episode after this one, we're going to talk about business. But while we're still here, how can people find you? Share with them.
You can find me on LinkedIn, Buckarie, Dumbuya. I think I would assume on there I would share my full name on the screen or in the description. Buckarie, Buckarie, Dumbuya, Dumbuya. You can look at the description. You'll see my name there, or if you Google my name, you'll see that I think LinkedIn will show up. My website, I'm still doing construction behind closed doors. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. That's where I started building my professional connection around the world. So you can find me there. So if you're looking for someone to help you to deal with the mental health challenges you're going through mentally, or leadership approach, or you trying to realize that your inner greatness and discover the potential that you have, and you want someone to help you deal with your problems you're going to deal with to do with mindsets. And I will not say to you, I have the solution to everything to your life, but I will say that I have the mindset to help you to realize the solution and to grow. And I help businesses and organizations. I am international public speaker, I write and speak, I co-author. So I help businesses and I do fashion designing. So if you're looking for that holistic approach, person to help you authentically, then you can Google my name or you can find me on LinkedIn, and then we can take it from there.
Now, what would you say briefly is a cost of the Sierra Leonean civil war to the Sierra Leonean nation?
Yeah, the consequence of this war, as I said, the war that we experience, loss of lives, we lost generation, and then economic crisis, depression, mental health crisis, the high rates of employment among young people, and then also loss of reputation in terms of economic stability in the country. As I'm speaking, it's not stable because we lost key partners, stakeholders to do business with Sierra Leone. So that also, as a result of the war, also investors, foreign investors, they're skeptical and they don't see Sierra Leone as a favorable economic environment to do business. So those are the consequences, and it also affects again the progression of the nation, and it creates poverty.
Thank you so much for that. Is there anything you would like to add to conclude the conversation? Maybe a final thought, a message, or anything?
So what I'll round up, because I remember you mentioned, because I will earlier on you mentioned about reconciliation, what to do. I was elaborating on your response because you influenced me. So in a nutshell, the reconciliation, I would say, I mentioned earlier, mindset is a key aspect of all the problems that we go through in life. Nothing happens outside us without internal thoughts. For every action, there lies the thoughts behind it. So to reconcile, for us to eradicate some of the problems we've created in the past in Sierra Leone, and for us to grow, or as a nation, human nation and society, whether Africa or in the UK or everywhere, to reconcile us as a Sierra Leonean firstly, we cannot just come up with a solution to say, oh, this is the problem. It's a one size fits all. Oh, I know this is the answer. No. Firstly, we need to hire people, work with people like me, for example, people, leaders within the economic environment in Sierra Leone, within the government, to work with people, not to have that nepotism. Don't work with people because you have close ties with them or you're connected with them, that tribalism and everything. You need to have a clear vision. Know that where you are in Sierra Leone, in your political position, you will not be there forever. You will die one day. So remember, you want to die peaceful. You want to die with the goodness you have with it. So be that person that will create opportunity for people in the I use the word diaspora. I cancel it. I used to use it. People overseas, because when you look at the word diaspora, it's not a good image. Study the word diaspora. Dispersed people from, no, I'm not in the diaspora, I'm in overseas. I don't want to go through that mindset. Just that I don't consider myself black. I consider myself as was born in the continent of Africa. I'm a human being. So the point I'm trying to say, so the people in the government in Sierra Leone, that question, because you trigger so many things that could conversation. I know you interviewed me, but some of those things you shared actually are crucial to the issues that we're trying to address about Sierra Leone. Because you mentioned maturity, I just picked those key aspects and then elaborated on it. Because as I mentioned about the importance of informal education, it's very, very important, because this is informal education. We're sharing our thoughts. YouTube. Now we live in an era where information is free. It's free if you have internet, or if you can read, or if you can listen, because what we share and people listen. So that's what I was trying to, sometimes I try to elaborate for people to understand, because it's complex. Because these are things that, to address issues like this are things you can take series of like workshops if you deal with managers and people, to when you ask a question about reconciliation. So I can say, for example, reconciliation, if I want to be precise, and like some people would do the greedy information, I would say to reconcile is just to change our mindsets. How? Find mentorship, hire people like me, and then get that growth mindsets, and then we work collaboratively with a strategic approach. That's it. Well, guess what? For me, or maybe you would understand the essence of it. But for the local people, as we're talking for the masses, they will not even understand if their mindset still is not matured. We're talking about maturity. That's why when I speak, I remember when I was in an environment where people, PhDs, doctors, we're talking about this is, again, connects with that. Wow. I was invited, I'll be precise with this, 1 or 2 minutes. I'll take 1 or 2 minutes. So I was invited to be part of 21 people in the UK. A friend of mine, she is the founder of Smiling Through Lights, and in Sierra Leone. She's helping people. She focuses on helping not only women, but focusing on girls, women, helping them using solar system to help students, right? So anyway, she was invited, and then I was invited to a meeting of 25 people, influential people within the African community, in a room. So we have a representative from the Uganda Eye Commission, and we have someone who used to work for IBM, but at that time it was working for Google. So we have a scholar from Oxford University who is the head for the entrepreneurship and innovation. I'm just painting this picture. These are people with all of this. So I'm here with a master's knowledge, right? But guess what? I went outside my master, because I read widely when you get to know me. I've got hundreds of books. So when I was speaking, I did not speak much, and I decided to go last. So it was 10 minutes before the end, and they needed one more person to speak after they've done the presentation. And the purpose of that meeting was to speak with social entrepreneurs like us And you got few people in this country, they had two entrepreneurship idea to help two African countries. So when we're in the meeting, so the purpose for that was to help these two countries, two nations. One, say the green agriculture, right? And then also water sanitization. So I've done my research before going, that was a short notice. So it was a close confined environment. Influential people were there. So when I spoke, obviously, I would not speak like I'm speaking to the lame people who are not highly educated. So I spoke within a couple of minutes when they gave me the opportunity to speak, and other people, they talk long, and I questioned them. So the purpose, when you think about business, the purpose we're there for was to work with these people and discuss. That was the first meeting, discuss how they could go to Sierra Leone and Nigeria to help Sierra Leone water sanitation and green agriculture. And obviously I'm coming from innovation background. Long story short, and when they present their ideas and all of this, whatever loan they've got and everything, and then I questioned them and I took them back because I endorsed myself. I said, I'm coming from a strategic background, different educational background, and my experience, design innovation management, human resource management, and then business administration. So now that you've presented your ideas, and I asked the question, and we're talking about innovation, I don't want to go deep into that. So in a nutshell, the person who represents Oxford University, and so his proposal or the idea he had was what we called radical innovation. But if you understand academically, for me, the vision there was to gather data. So the idea was to put a device on a tap to monitor these young people, the kids who people who are fetching water. And I said, when you look at the email you sent me and the purpose of that meeting, it does not align. And I made a reference to an article to do with, I said, you cannot implement that radical innovation. You said it's to help these people, but you did not apply what we called market pull rather than product push. Because if you really want to help the people, you have to go there first and do what we use empathy to understand, study, whatever research, understand, and then go with solutions. So that means, say, I was precise when I deal with the situation. I spoke that I didn't go in depth. So that's the point I was trying to say. So when I spoke, because in that environment, I had to speak that way. But if I'm speaking for a larger audience, I want people perhaps don't understand about strategy or my mindset, I have to elaborate myself to break it down. That's why sometimes I elaborate. But if it was to sell myself, I can do within a minute. But it depends on the situation. There's time for everything. As the Bible says, Ecclesiastes said, there's time to cry, there's time to be happy. There's time to sell, there's time to not to sell. There's time to show empathy. There's time to focus on compassion, sympathy. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share. But I don't know if this continues, because what I was trying to elaborate on earlier about reconciliation, it's just simple. So firstly, we understand we need to work together, not to go with, for example, oh, Buck, you've got experience, you've been in the UK for over 20 years, you're British citizen or you're highly educated. No, that, or maybe Obehi, you've got this. No, we all need to go with the mindset. This is a design thinking mindset, an open mindset, but an understanding that this is the problems. We work and we identify the problems. We go through that sessions. We do that, what we do brainstorming, we work together, we understand the problems, and then we work with different multifaceted individuals from different field of studies. And then once we gather insights, that insights drive innovations and solutions. But sometimes, because we have this mindset, we call ourselves experts, we come up with solutions without understanding the problems. So we need to understand the causes, and then we can reconcile from that. To reconcile is inside, not outside.
Thank you so much for that. That is very important. Of course, that has presented itself a number of occasions. And of course, looking at the situation of Sierra Leone, like in many other parts of Africa, I think that is a good lesson that we can learn from Rwanda. Of course, without going so much in detail, because the people need to heal. The situation that happened is very traumatizing. You talk about of course, there are many other people that are living right there in Sierra Leone who need to be listened to. The idea of talking, that is already something good. Let's talk about what happened to us. Let's talk about our feeling. How do we feel about what have happened? I don't think there is any magic bullet anywhere. The problem that we have within it part of the solution. If we know that we have a problem, then we mean that we also know that we can find a solution, because inside the problem, there is a solution. So that we don't really need the University of Oxford or Harvard to provide a solution to Sierra Leone in terms of the reconciliation or even the development. I was saying in my book in 2010, the book I was referring to before, that when we plan a project in Rome or in Paris or in London, and then export this project to maybe in Freetown or Lagos or in Nairobi, that is not development. If we want development, we need to, first of all, understand what the people want. It is the people that want development, not we. We don't impose development, because imposing development would be like play the same paradigm, like the Europeans said, that they are bringing development to the African people. But how do you bring development to a people? How do you know what the people want? How many consultations did you have with the people that they then tell you, based on this one, you come to the conclusion that they needed this? So the development must come from the people. And what are the things that are needed? You need the resources and the interest of the local people. And of course, I went in detail there to talk about, for example, the case of the Niger Delta in Nigeria, where Shell, BP, and many of the multinationals have actually abused the land and the people. And if we go back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation of who a person is, if you ask based on that, you see that those multinationals are not acting based on that at all. They are acting based on me and my interest, not we and the future. Because if you consider the interest of where you are living, that you are sitting on the land, that you cannot destroy this land, your operation will be different. And if maybe our politicians are reasoning like this, in the case of Sierra Leone, for example, that we understand that we are fighting this war for the interest of these people, then the type of war we fight will be different. Then it will be unimaginable to put somebody's hand on the wood and just cut it. How do you explain that to the generation that is going to come? How do you explain that? I think, therefore, that we first of all need to understand ourselves first. Who are we? And who are we in relation to what we are doing? In relation to what is going to happen after now? Because after you cut out somebody's hand, you cannot uncut it. You have cut it, it's gone. There is nothing you can do about it. What kind of atonement are you going to make for that? That is a crime against humanity and against nature, against the code of life. How do you remedy that? So I believe that if we understand who we are, in line with the complex web of life, we will be careful the kind of action we take, because they have consequences. I want to thank you so much for the sharing. It really has been very, very inspiring, sharing your view and helping the people to understand. Like I said before, as we talk, we are in the process of healing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, and thank you for the way you sum it up. Very, very impactful, emotional. Just like you said, we're talking about reconciliations, and one quick statement, one precise statement. Just like you said, it starts with discussion, conversations. and that's empathy. And within our community, as a Sierra Leonean, I'm speaking, right? As a Sierra Leonean, or when I mean as a Sierra Leonean, because I was born in Sierra Leone, I've learned that when you face people to have conversation with them, to deal with real life issues, and people shy away from even expressing themselves, saying that I was not nurtured to express myself. I was not like this. This book you're saying, I grow. So we're talking about growth. I grew from the custom and tradition of my culture, so-called culture that I was given, right? So I started reading books, and and the first book, this was one of this book, I wouldn't say first book, this book, The New Rules of Entrepreneurship, taught me to go back into my childhood experience in Sierra Leone, for me to pursue what I am doing right now. In 2010, I was experiencing crisis here, and then at that time I was pursuing my ex, someone I engaged, lives in the States, a vision. And then I've waited 5 years for my for my permanent residence. And I said, I was studying accounting. You asked me to pursue your vision because I had the intention to relocate to America. And then I went to the market, Sunday market, and I bought this book, £5, The New Rules of Entrepreneurship. And that book taught me a lesson to turn my passion into profits and to go back into my childhood and look at the talents, the things I enjoy doing. And that's when I realized that as a child in Sierra Leone, I used to serve, I used to sell stuff, I used to do fashion, creative, engineering stuff, all of those things. I love doing that in business. And I said, I'm going to do fashion. That was a pivotal moment. And I called my ex. We started making argument. It's just, we were having that dispute. And then I registered. When I registered, the company I was working for, a care company, because at that time I had the permit to work at the care company, they made me homeless because they provided the accommodation for me. And then because of education, I said my purpose for me to be here is to study, not only just to work while studying. Yeah, and then they didn't allow me, and they gave me notice to leave the house. I became homeless because they provided the accommodation for me. And then I became homeless. And because I registered, I said, I'm going to become a fashion designer. That's when I studied business. When the university said they wouldn't allow me to study fashion because I don't have a portfolio. So I studied business. I had a vision that if I'm going to become a fashion designer, I want to be a successful business person. So I need to study the business aspect of things. That's where I learned strategy. So you see, as a result of that, and then when I started reading, and then I read a book called How to Get What You Want and Want What You Have, written by John Gray. Because of that book, it taught me a lesson to fulfill the love tanks, the things that I didn't get to do as a child, because I grew up in a strict environment where I wasn't allowed to play. So I lost that childhood experience. But I thank my parents for them to be strict. Otherwise, I would have been maybe drinking. I've never drank in my life, and I'll never do that anymore. And I don't have problem with people that drink, and I've never smoked in my life. My dad smoked and drink, and he stopped us from doing that. And he stopped doing that prior to his death over 25 years. So the books that I started reading changed me. And when I studied, again, because of the education I pursued, studied psychology, we were asked to choose a specific subject. I chose stress. I didn't even know about stress. I chose that. And that led me. That's when I started healing myself. And I learned that one of the ways to cope with stress is to communicate, to find a safe environment. So, and then that resonates with what you asking about reconciliation. And very important when you said it. One way to start reconciliation to deal with the destruction, mental health challenges, and that development you're saying, it does not come from outside. We have to, we can have a vision from the outside, but we have to communicate, allow people to express themselves, because people don't, we are not expressive within the African community. So when we start to express ourselves, we not only understand what people want, but also by having a critical mindset, creative mindset to observe people's emotions when they talk, then we'll be able to address those insights, and then not only help them to get what they want, but also to help them to address the needs, what they need. Because in economics, we can satisfy our needs, but we can never satisfy our wants. No, you mentioned about wants. Sometimes what we want is not what we need. So that's why we need to have a conversation for people to understand. You want to buy Bugatti, you want to drive Mercedes Benz, but you don't need that now, because if you buy it, it's going to be a liability to you. Or you want to buy a house, you want to live, you don't have economic stability, so to speak, to maintain it. Maybe you can buy a house and then you rent it, then because you become not liability, but asset. So the point is, so when we start having conversations, that will be one way to understand that, oh, I'm dealing with maybe personal, emotional issues, work crisis, family issues. Having this conversation will be the developments, the unlocking of.
And it can probably even lead to the people finding a solution themselves.
Exactly.
In the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, there is a part at the point Napoleon Hill was talking about mass psychology. That there is where in the mass psychology, now you need to look at it like a soup where everything is sort of mixed up together, where we can synchronize almost our mind and we can find a solution. Because I don't think Africans are stupid. I think what we need is organization of our thoughts. So that would make me go back again to what the former ambassador to Nigeria ambassador to Italy was telling me, that we need to reflect. Because now again, if you look at what is happening in Africa, there is a design to make us remain in the loop, to always be running, just just like this, like little children. But because when we do that, we remain in a loop of just the mode of the survivor, just in the running, Because if we are allowed to reflect, we will figure it out. There is no way we cannot figure it out. There was this scientist or entrepreneur in India. He bought a series of computers and brought it to a village of children that have never used computer before. He just turned the computer on and he left. That was all he did. These children that have never used a computer before, just playing around, all of them, just touching different things. They were not only able to own the computer, but they were able to start communicating. What is happening? That I have certain limitation myself. That is the same with you. But if we are talking, you can begin to help me to see my blind spot, and you also see your blind spot. So that very soon, my limitation can be compensated with what you know, and yours can be compensated with what I know. And then we begin to see our commonality, we begin to see our interests, we begin to see who the enemy is, we begin to see what we need and what we don't really need. Because if I am alone, I'm the only person that is trying to figure out everything, there is no way I can do it. So that is why I think it is important that we talk. Let's talk. If we talk, we will figure it out. You see, during the Nigeria Civil War, there was some weapon that were created by the Igbo people of Nigeria. It's called Oganigwe. It was a very powerful weapon. I don't know whether the Nigerian military have actually explored that weapon to develop on it. What happened? Because they didn't have anything anymore. The people come together, they put their resources together, they will find a solution. They are not children. But first, we need to stop and reflect. What is really going on? We will find a solution to it. But if we are in this mode, hey, die, leave it, we will never be able to see anything. We are just, because all the information are just passing like this. They are too fast.
Yeah,
Anyway.
because Because reflection, because you said so many things. Yeah, reflection is this is part of the mentorship and coaching session I do, and we all and in fact it was actually a subject. So about I developed my own idea from it. So it was actually a module, one of the modules I studied during my master's. It's called Reflection and Action. But in my one of my books, I elaborated on that, and it's something that I've been doing without me knowing until I even discovered that. So reflection and action is part of critical thinking. So critical thinking mindset is crucial. So because even when I'm speaking, right, sometimes we speak, we forget ourselves. So it's good to take pause, depending on the situation. It's good to take pause to be mindful, so you can reflect when you're in action, so you can guide yourself. You see, sometimes like you see, like if I'm in there, that perhaps I'm going off. You see, and then I have to come back because I'm reflecting on my environment. Because when you don't reflect, you miss opportunity to realize some of the blind spot that your mind is not seeing. So just like you said again, reflection for me, when you look back, it makes you, for example, if you're dealing with current crisis, it would help you to not to surrender to succumb to the current crisis. You said, you know what, Buck, you've been through so much crisis in life. When the pandemic happened, that helped me. I said, you know what, I've achieved many things. So I'm grateful. And there were people, there were babies, they didn't get the opportunity to live to this stage where I am right now. So I am going to do what I can and cope with the situation because I can't change it. So that's all part of reflection. So, and then also with the crisis in Sierra Leone or in the African community, because we don't reflect and learn with critical thinking. So we keep repeating the same thing, same problem. So reflection creates opportunity for us to learn, to see the reason where we are where we are. People have anxiety about the future. For me, I don't care about the future because we can never be into the future. We can never. The future is an illusion. So now is the best time. So we look, as I said in my book, we can learn from the past by reflection and then reflect where we are, what I've done today. Like today, look, since this morning, what I've done to you, I'm okay with this because the things I have shared, yeah? And just like you said, you mentioned about when you give away things, I'll share it in my own way. When you give away things, right? You can't take it back. For example, words, you can't unsaid. That's why you need to reflect before you speak. And Ephesians 4:29, if I'm correct, and I'm just paraphrasing, it says that the scripture says that we must not speak corrupt words. That is not edification to the listener, but things that may impact grace. So what you do, we're creating this, we can't unsaid something. That's why we have to reflect. Think. Some people speak without thinking. So that's the issues. And by having this conversation, reflecting why we are where we are as a business person, as a citizen, as the people we're talking about, politicians and leaders. Remember, I don't blame the politicians much, not government officials. We the people again, because we put them there. We celebrate them and we see them doing things. We cover them, especially if we're connected with them. And then I don't have problems with the foreigners because they're business people. If you don't open the door, no one will destroy your house.
All right, that's how we're going to end the conversation today. And of course, they end with the responsibility that is everything lies on our court. If we want it to continue like this, that is okay for every other person that is coming from outside to rip on you because it depends on you. You know, there is something like Alfu said, that between the relationship that exists between Africa and Europe for at least in the past 400 years, is going to continue like this forever until Africa change it. The European will never change it. It is not up to them to change it. If you have something you don't know the value, I can take it anytime I like. Why would I go to make law that would not make it, that would make it impossible for me to take it? Am I stupid? It depends.
Leadership, this is what it's simple. That's what that Bible, whether you're Muslim or not, the Bible, Genesis 1 and 26 says, let us create man. So mom and dad, parents, father and mother, they created us, right? And they said, take dominion over everything. If you give birth, then you have to take dominion over the things on earth, right? So life is about leadership, right? So the change that we need, whether as an individual, whether as society, as community, as a business, it comes from a leadership mindset attitude, not your old mindset, because your old mindset is the reason why you are where you are. For you to change, as Gandhi said, we have to be the change. Not we can pray to God. I see people, they worship their pastors, their imams, their whatever leaders. That they have the power within themselves. So, and that's self-leadership.
It's ignorance. It's ignorance. All right. So, thank you so much, my brother. It's been a pleasure here talking with you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you too. God bless.